Greetings, Patriots. It's 9/11. Vibe Rant. Never forget. We're here with the real kingpin of conspiracy nostalgia here, Paranoid American, back in action. It's been a while since we caught up. Very excited to hang. I've had a great day. Went to dinner with Marty Leeds of the Gnostic Church and Academy. He bought me dinner tonight. So you guys, I want you to do me a favor and go make sure you're subbed to his excellent YouTube channel. Maybe throw him a super chat. Pick up the tab on my behalf. Thank you, guys. Thomas, how you doing, man? It's good to see you, bro. Looking good.
I'm good, man. Hey, happy 9/11. Happy
9/11. I busted out. I never wear this shirt on streams. This is my 4th of July shirt.
Well, I guess 9/11 is the new 4th of July. Like this 4th of July is for your grandpa. 9/11's for us.
Yeah, dude. It's a celebration. Awesome.
It's like, when you get like remarried, like later on when like you know what you're doing instead of just the one that you were you like rushed into like a horny teenager. 9/11's like the remarriage ceremony, or it's almost like getting baptized again later in life. You know what I mean? Like the first one, some people think doesn't count because they were a baby and their head was all soft. So if you do it like the second time, it really takes. So I think that's what 9/11's just kind of like another great excuse to have barbecues and sales and not a day off of work because it's not a federal holiday yet.
Never forget the Tower of Babel falling.
Towers. Yeah. 3.
Tonight, guys, we are renewing our vows to freedom.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, what's new in your life, dude? I feel like you're just crushing it, making so many podcasts. Like you really hit the ground running after it's been a while, but I had the honored episode #1 spot, and it's just blown up. Good job, man.
You set me off, bro. You hit the tuning fork and you set the right vibe, and I've just been kind of riding on the residuals of that. So all credit due to just like the frequencies that you started out. And also I transitioned unwillingly into just full-time whatever the hell it is that I'm doing now. Just constant meme making and comic publishing, and basically using it as a chance to get through my entire backlog of all the projects that have either been done or 80% done or just needed to come out but didn't have any sort of like oomph behind it in terms of marketing and all that. So I've just been going through my list and knocking out all the things,
Man, it must be nice.
Not really. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I can't, like I'm basically functionally broke at this point. So that's a complete difference. Like I don't get to go on vacations or have any sort of discretionary spending. I'm still looking for a sugar mom or sugar dad, depending on the type of sugar that's being provided. But
okay, well, maybe they're out there tonight. Maybe they'll be
hit me up, dude. No. Honestly, it's been a long time that I've been waiting to get some of these books out. Like some are embarrassingly overdue. Like some are like older than people that I might even be marketing them towards. You know what I mean? But they're like my Connect the Dot series, for example, the children's book series, huge hit, and I've had issue 2 done for probably like 3 or 4 years now. And I just need to get it colored and lettered and all the stuff. So that's what I've been working on recently. I don't know if you've been looking at any of my socials. I post a few of my conspiracy card series that's got kind of like conspiracy theorist legends, but reimagined as either baseball stars or what have you, based on classic Score and Don Russ and Topps and Upper Deck and all of those. Like these are all just things that have been floating around. I was like, man, if I ever had the time, I'd like to do that. So now I've got all the time, so I'm doing it.
You want to do any show and tell?
I'm not prepared to. I don't have anything around me right now. And in fact, I'm getting ready for a convention that's in a week from now, 10 days from now, and I'll be there with Cheney. It's the Ocala Comic Con, and I got a huge board that I've been putting together in the other room with all my stickers, but they're not like double taped down yet. So if I pick it up, they'll all just fly over. But I've got like it was the hardest game of Tetris I've ever played in my life, trying to get every single sticker I've made to fit on like a single big poster board. And now like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it because it's a little bit teetering. But yeah, I've got a whole bunch of those. I got a pamphlet that I've been working on with a bunch of people, actually. One with Donut about the Bavarian Illuminati, one with my homeboy Nate from Reality Czars. We did one on Bigfoot. They got a bunch of input from all different people. I've got one done on the Titanic. I got one done on the Satanic Panic. I got a game that I need to bring out that's like already done. So I mean, you can expect just nonstop releases. The only thing that's been holding me back lately is the amount of time it takes to actually put together all the marketing materials and all the email write-ups and making all the little thumbnails. Like that stuff doesn't take zero amount of time. And sometimes like it's just 2 weeks of doing nothing but clipping stuff. And that's 2 weeks that I don't have to actually put it out and release it. So I'm trying to figure out the best workflow where I can just get into a groove. So release a thing almost every month. Right now I got to do it like a month, and then I got to take like a month to recover and lick my wounds and just figure out what kind of chaos that I created. And once that settles, I'd repeat the process. But I'll be doing that for the next year or so.
Man, so you're full time? Does that mean you had a different gig and now you're just a paranoid American all the time?
Up until I left, I mean, even through high school, I think I wasn't ever really unemployed at any point, or at least wasn't working for myself full time at any point during that whole process. I was always freelancing or doing some kind of little side gig, all the way from military, recording studio, Disney, and then after that, I worked a whole bunch of different like software gigs. And the last one, they just I AI'd myself out of a position. Like I introduced AI to the company, and it did so well that they were like, "Oh," I mean, long story short, like yeah, I helped facilitate the end of my time there instead of jumping directly back into the rat race. I really did. I kind of sat down and I was thinking if I can go right back into it, but I'm also going to have to make a huge, like great impression and, you know, show up early and stay late and do all those things that you got to do when you start a new job, that normally if after you've settled in. So I could either have done that, or I had just done the Chaos Twins with Sam. It did amazingly. I think it sold like over 40 grand in a month or two. And I was just thinking, if we can just repeat that over and over and over again, I don't have to go back and work for someone else. I could just do conspiracies and comics full time, and what a dream that would be. So if not now, then when? I'm in my 40s already. So I mean, if not now, when? The answer to that, if it weren't rhetorical, would be like when I'm in my 50s or 60s. So I just figured give it a shot here. Originally it was going to be for 8 months. Now maybe it'll be for 28. I don't know. We'll see.
Cool, man. I'm looking at the Chaos Twins here.
Yeah, this was the book that I did with Sam Tripoli. It was entirely his idea.
What's
I
happening to that bear?
To come in. Yeah, this is the infamous "What is happening to the bear" cover. And this one's not going to be for sale after the initial run is out. Because I mean, I guess when we were all working on it, dude, this was like a children's all ages book. It was so innocent and there were so many options. And this one ended up being the main cover. We got 3 covers for it. This is the main cover. And then someone on, I think it was like the subreddit or somewhere on Twitter, and they were like, "What's that robot doing to that bear?" And we collectively were like, "Oh God, these sick animals." But yeah, I guess if you want to say that. So this is pretty much like an exclusive cover you won't be able to get again. The reprints are using one of the alternate covers.
Man, just
the Chosen One blew up. That one did really great. We're introducing a whole bunch of more cameos in the follow-up issue of that one. And if you guys watch Secret Society of Good Guys with Project Cheney and Layla and Abby, they also announced recently that they might be working on something similar. So yeah, I've got a whole bunch of really cool projects that are totally in the works right now.
good stuff, dude. I'm impressed by the creative output. Honestly, it's amazing. Just got to be fun.
Gotta exercise these demons, man. That's all it really is, truly.
What do you mean by that? Tell me more.
Well, I guess like I sit back, and not to be all hipster, but I say this often enough, but I kind of grew up in the early 90s of conspiracy. And I was just talking about this with someone the other day, and I kind of dawned on me that there was a definite shift that in the 90s, early 2000s, aside from a few key names that came up a lot, William Cooper, Jordan Maxwell, Myron Fagan, maybe Alex Jones, but not even really Alex Jones in like the mid 90s. That was kind of more towards the late 2000s. But even those guys that had these like names that you could relate to, they weren't necessarily what you were going after. It wasn't like, oh, William Cooper just dropped a new rant, or, you know, maybe Manly Palmer Hall might be the exception here, because that was kind of his thing. But it was more about like the information that they were putting out. Phil Schneider, it was like the information they were putting out, and they weren't really like these celebrities or personalities. So anyways, I find myself now like watching the 2020 version of this after what, 30, 40 years. Now the new wave of conspiracy, it's just everyone's got a hot take and an opinion on the latest thing, and it works so much better if you can throw it out as like a little quip or a 160 character tweet with like a little meme. And I appreciate it, but I think my version of that is like stewing on it and making a whole story around it to really explain like what my thinking is about something. It doesn't always convey the easiest over a video or an audio podcast. Like I actually have to show you the portals opening, and I got to show you how like the Salvia Divinorum is literally turning into like little entities, and like I have to go through all those different steps. So if I can't do it in the form of a comic book, I just feel like I've never gotten my idea fully across. So that's kind of what I mean by exercising these demons. Like I have to do these comics because it's the only way that I really feel I can express how I sort of see the world.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's kind of what happens as you research long enough in any field. It's like you got to start turning it into something. Otherwise, it's like, what was it all for?
Schizophrenia.
Well, that's fun. That's half of the fun around here.
Oh, good old fun. So like what the rich people did in the 1800s.
Well, I think we'll see our schizophrenic champion in a bit, maybe rebooting or doing something with his camera. But I jinxed us because before we got on, I was like, dude, Gabe got a new computer. He's going to be in sync with us the whole time. And then
he just needs to come in with like a huge dramatic entrance. You know, Gabe. So
you got a 9/11 comic? You got 9/11 content, or is that one too surface level?
No, it's not off limits. The thing that I really wanted were I wanted to make a series of Valentine's Day cards. And I know there was one that came out a while ago, just to show how deep my backlog is. But the one with the two buildings and it says "I'm falling for you," and they're like embracing. Have you seen this?
I don't think so. Maybe
it's a decent one. It looks like a kid's drawing out of crayons, but it's got the twin towers, and there's like a plane sticking out of the side of one, and it's on fire. And there might even be like a dude, like a stick figure, that's like jumping out of one of the windows. But the two towers are like reaching towards each other with their arms out, and it just says "I'm falling for you," and it's supposed to be like a sick Valentine's. But I really wanted to make like a series of like a Waco Valentine's Day, a 9/11 Valentine's Day, like all of the things.
Who is this for?
Exactly that. Yeah, it doesn't exist yet. But you know what it's for? It will be for me. Exactly.
He's wearing his own merch. That's what's up. Nice shirt, dude.
Just like wearing your own merch. Except, like, who am I going to send it to? I don't know anyone that would like appreciate to just get like a happy Waco Day or happy Patriot Day, I guess it would be, right? But I want it to exist, and if I want it to exist and no one else does, then I guess it's on me to make it exist or not. And that's how I feel like all the stupid stickers and shirts and comics and music. It almost feels sometimes like a burden, or it's almost like I did it for my own enjoyment, but I don't know if anyone else would ever find this interesting, or at least not in my lifetime. So let's put it on the internet. So maybe someone in like 500 years using a weird AI bot that's like, let's see what they did back in, the old times. Maybe they'll come across it and appreciate it. Like posthumous recognition is the best kind, isn't it?
I don't know. I've never had it.
I always say plant seeds for trees that you don't anticipate to eat the fruit of.
Word. How freaking Johnny Appleseed of you? Yeah, honestly, I mean, if I could just, get John Teeter to come back now from the future, or someone to let me know in the future. They're like, yeah, there's people still talking. Are we going on YouTube right now? By the way, let me just ask that up front. Okay. Oh man, are there still people talking about this this event that starts with F and it has like a razzle in it? Maybe some dripping is followed. And I don't know if anyone else is really upholding that, or if someone were to look back from the future and think, oh, these guys were just insane. It was like another satanic panic thing. But if someone, or even if it's just AI, just takes it into its algorithm and it's like, wait, someone was making jokes about it. Someone made an actual comic book about this. Maybe there's some more nuance to it than we thought. I don't know. It feels like it's a worthy endeavor, even if I'm a party of one sometimes.
Yeah, man. You know, Chance and I, we have a sneaking suspicion that you're just dying to make a comic book about us.
Well, you already know you're in a comic, Slick. You've got like one of the sickest cameos that's ever been drawn. The comic that you're in, the artist said that was his favorite comic to ever work on in his entire career. So like you're already in, but your comic, I don't even know what the release schedule is for it, because it started and it was like an ambitious project that was going to be 6 books, and then we finished one, and then I don't know what happened to the other 5.
So this is from the Rising from the Ashes crew, right?
Correct. It is done. I paid out of pocket too. Like I'm out of money having it produced. The cover's done, the lettering's done, it's all done. But yeah, I don't the actual Rising from the Ashes, like we're waiting for it itself, ironically, to rise from the ashes to put the book out. Or is the book the thing? Maybe I'm just being an idiot here. Is the book the thing that makes the phoenix rise back out of the ashes?
The book is the phoenix. The whole Rising from the Ashes thing happened so that book would be created.
Dude,
you got the causality backwards.
It is such a cool freaking book with a I mean, I guess I might as well spill some of the details. It's not going to be the ultimate spoiler. So the whole premise of the book, it's got Danunaki Dan in it, it's got Homie Romy, and it's got Slick Dissident. And the main protagonists are Dan and Roman, and they basically find this tattoo shop that when they get tattoos, they're transported to a completely different dimension, but it's almost like a Tolkien-esque Dungeons and Dragons-y, Willy Wonka-y dimension, where they're going on quests and battles, and they're jacked, and they got swords and shields and all the things that you would expect on like a massive epic adventure. And then when they snap back to, they've got new tattoos on them, and they find out over time that these magical tattoos, they can actually utilize them inside this dream world. So now they're like, oh, we couldn't get past this particular challenge because we didn't have the thing. So they just get the thing tattooed, and the next time they go in the dream world, they can kind of rip it out of their skin. And it's a awesome freaking story, and it's deep as hell because I mean Slick was involved, so all the character backstories and all of the different symbolism and the things they do and the places they go are all have like 8 trillion meanings, as in classic Slick fashion, right?
Classic Slick fashion. That's a good freeze frame. I've missed this dude. It's been a couple weeks.
You promised me he was going to be perfect tonight.
Oh, that was a trip.
You dressed him up and everything.
That was a trip. That was the first time since the new computer. All right.
You're back.
Tell me, where do we find that episode? Because nobody gave me any links. Do I come over to Paranoid American? And which book is it? Because I'm going to buy one tonight.
It's not out. It's not out yet, dude. It's not, because here's how the logistics work, right? Is that I work on a book with somebody, and they've got their own following, and I've got my own following, and we combine forces when the book is done and drop it. Yeah, dude, Juan's the perfect example. To answer my phone call, he was me $33. I thought it was 332. Okay, I'll do 33. That's fine. But the way it usually works is that when the book is ready to come out, it's like a huge push to get everyone on board to make sure it's as successful as possible, right? Because that initial issue is where you get everyone's interest. So anyways, I mean, like there's no shade anywhere here. It's waiting for the Rising from the Ashes podcast to kind of revive itself so that this can be a huge, big marketing push. Because I guess I could put it out myself, but it was also completely co-created by Dan. So I want to make sure that Dan's also ready to put it all out exactly on the timeline that's most comfortable and everything.
You know what we should do? We should all get together and we should do another Dungeons and Dragons episode and have people donate in the chat while we're doing the live stream Dungeons and Dragons
I love
to
it,
the
dude.
cause. Yeah.
I love it. I mean, we could even have a page that doesn't necessarily have like a specific timeline on it. It's just like once it hits X amount, you know, this thing is coming out.
Chance, you got to think up your Dungeons and Dragons character. You can't be a front-tailed nymph. That was mine. Or front-tailed dryad. I'm a front-tailed dryad.
Okay, but like
that one's
dick
on the
jokes
list,
are
man.
obviously still welcome, though.
Time.
I see. I remember you guys doing that.
Yeah,
That's great.
dude, it's such a good comic. I mean, I guess it's hard to trust me because of course I'm gonna say that. You know what I mean? It was like a comic I worked on, but man, it's one of those things that they get to go and do things that I've wanted to do in other books, but so far almost all my books have had like a horror or political or just like things that I've been obsessed with, and I've never really been as obsessed with doing an adventure comic like classic spells and swords and shields. But it was so freaking fun to do that because we get to go into mythology, we get to play around with modern interpretations of all these sort of ancient tales. And like one of the gags it's so cool is that they die in every single episode. Like they basically have to get burned alive in every single episode as per the name, Rising from the Ashes. And that's kind of their exit from the dream world, is they die in some fantastic fashion. It's almost always that homie Romy rushes into some scene, or he's like, I'm gonna go and save that princess over there, and it's just like they immediately die. So it also kind of has like an interesting Groundhog Day feel to it, which I'm a sucker for that whole stupid trope of like you die and you get to relive, but you get to keep the knowledge that you originally had. It's one of the most fascinating topics to me.
I think that topic is basically the monomyth too. That's the whole seed of
yeah. It's
Chance,
Gabe,
I
go
totally can't wait to see your character come together, buddy. You know it's gonna have like a bident. It's gonna have a big badass bident, and your lightning bolts is gonna show every time you hold it. Your lightning bolt's gonna be there. Yeah, buddy, I can't wait for the Chance character.
Okay, what's new with you, man? What's been on your mind? I saw that we both kind of put a Anunnaki themed flavored video out within an hour of each other the other day.
Yeah, synchronistic. Yeah, so I was kind of weaving on James Earl Jones passing away as a considerable landmark and rich with synchro significance, you know, dying on 9/9 at the age of 93. Very thelemic number, that 93.
93 years and 237 days. So you've even got the Kubrick number worked in there. Shout out to Alex Crypto K for finding that one.
That's right. That's his number, isn't it? So Kubrick and Carl Jung have the exact same birthday. They're both Cancers. And so that gives them both strong correspondence to the Chariot card. But yeah, so that was kind of the topic that I was weaving on with James Earl Jones passing away the day before there was a manhunt in London, Kentucky, where a random dude was up taking people out and the cops were chasing him all night long. I was actually watching the manhunt live, and PK and I just did a show about Caput Garrett Lapinum, is the papal bull for let him wear the wolf's head, is a decree that there's an outlaw in your area. And if he breaks into your house, you are expected to burn your own house down to kill him. Caput Garrett Lupinum is profound. And sure enough, right after we were talking about it, it takes place in Kentucky. Kentucky is the full card in my territories map. But he was in London, Kentucky. Well, James Earl Ray, after shooting Martin Luther King, absconded to London. He ran away to London, and that's where they snatched him up and brought him on trial. So I just did a whole show about James Earl Ray, who it turns out in 1993 again, somebody comes out of the woodwork and says that he was scapegoated. He didn't pull that trigger. It was actually a cop in Memphis who shot Martin Luther King. So I was just kind of drumming up some of this history and corresponding it to the inevitability of James Earl Jones passing on that particular day. And just on the same day that Darth Vader died, a 12-year-old kid invented the laser beam of Archimedes. That was in the news on the same day. And the laser
Really,
beam,
like the mirrors that burn the ships?
a kid, a 12-year-old, he probably did it in his garage like all the other guys do their shit in their garage.
So he unmyth busted it?
He unmyth busted it, 12-year-old kid, on the same day that Darth Vader, who gave us the death ray, goes into the underworld. And sure enough, Uranus has gone full retrograde on that day as well. So yeah, the synchromysticism of it all is so planetary and so large. So I was weaving on that, and then I come to Chance, and he's talking about the Anunnakin Skywalker, who I call Anichian Skywalker.
And when you mentioned James Earl Ray, the first thing I think of too, when you talk about patsies, JFK, patsy, RFK, probably patsy, right? Is there any like large scale American political assassination attempt where the guy that got paraded as "we got him"? Do you think any of them have been the guy, even up into including the most recent one with the little earring?
That one was obviously real.
Well, yeah, aside from that one, we got it on video. Come on.
According to the King Kill myth from what's his name that did King Kill
James
33?
Shelby Downard.
Thank you. According to him, they always have to have a minimum of 3 potential gunmen, such that history will spin forever chasing their tail, deciding if it was the guy, if it was the butler with the candlestick in the drain, or was it the guy with the rifle up on the tower, or was it the hobo
Professor
on
Plum in the study with the
that's kind of a part of the recipe.
Well, Thomas is a Mason. He would know. Is it based on like the Jubilee,
whoa,
Jubilum,
God,
Jubadubu guys?
We agreed before we started that wasn't going to come up.
But the guys, the guys that whacked Hiram Abiff, there was 3 assassins. Maybe that's where Downer got the idea that there's got to be 3 possible patsies.
Jubilo, and Jubilum, which almost sounds like
Tweedledee,
Tweedledum kind of vibes. But yeah, those were the actual original assassins, ruffians. But I almost think, talking about King Kill 33, right, the most famous Masonic ritual, we all have to do it in order to get to the 33rd degree too. That's one of the rules.
Where do you find all the kings? There's only so many.
Well, here, dude. So I think it's advanced. So the JFK version of it was one of the more literal interpretations, and I say things kiddingly, but I'm like only 5% kidding. I just say it funny because I can get away with it easier. But I really do think that the King Kill 33 ritual was helped put into place by the CIA, Sidney Gottlieb. He was deep into the occult, and why not? Why not try? If you got carte blanche, right? If you got a blank check from the CIA, they're just like, do your worst. You're going to try all these weird things out there. But I think that original version of it that was very literal that James Shelby Downer talked about, I think we've improved the technology. They've researched the occultism. And what happened in this recent one is they took the energy from an assassination attempt and they redirected it at the actual sitting president, which actually would make more sense. Why would you King Kill 33 ritual someone that's running but might not actually even end up being president? The King Kill 33 ritual has to be done on the actual king, right? It can't be a proxy king. It would be like throwing your crappy baby to Moloch. He wants the good firstborn with like the nice stock, right? So not only do you have to do that, but the King Kill has 2 purposes. One is you're supposed to take the king out and be able to redirect the energy for your own means, but also you're supposed to take them out before they completely decline on their own, because then the energy is kind of it's kind of tainted, right? It's like the vampire that doesn't want to drink from a heroin addict kind of thing. And Biden was kind of on the way out, right? So that like he was primed for this King Kill 33 ritual, but he probably wouldn't have been able to like take like a hit to the ear, you know what I mean? Like it would have been over. And I don't know if they would have the same. So, anyways, the energy released from Trump, whatever happened there, right? It ends up getting Biden to step down. So really, it was like this weird new 2020 version of King Kill 33 where it doesn't have to be direct. It can almost be like a non-linear, like almost like it was like a quantum King Kill, right? Like the bullet hit this dude over here, but the dude over there ends up falling down.
Yeah, it's like the purpose of the ritual would be to reset the board. It creates a new world. I think it's supposed to be like a ritual reenactment of the creation itself, because when you understand the multivalent symbolism of cosmogonies of the ancient mystery school traditions, wherever they're from, it's always about every creation story is also a deluge story, and every deluge story is also a creation story when you get it. And there's a particularly interesting one with Belus, the Phoenician Babylonian god Belus, which is, on your Wikipedia entry about Belus, you'll just read that he's a god of war or what have you. But when they all resolve down into the same Trinity and into the same one God, the great Father that shapes the world with mind and turns all the matter from chaos into order is, like Noah, Kronos, all these same figures. His symbols are not just like the ark or the boat, but the cosmic egg, like Mithras or Phanes. And then I found out that, and Belus was the biggest piece of evidence for it, that the head itself, like the severed head, decapitated head, is also that exact same symbol as the egg or the ark. Because Belus, he fashions the world by cutting off his own head in the intermediary period, the deluge period, cuts off his own head, and from his head, the whole world emerges. So that's like, the killing of the king for fertility. That's John the Baptist head on a plate that the Templars allegedly used for some sort of like fecundity magic, because the fecundity is in the head of the deity. When you understand the John mythos, John is the reincarnation of Adam, and Adam's the great father is Kronos. So that's exactly what they're going for. So when you see like in the, occult artwork, a head on a plate, that's actually the head of Kronos or Belus to the Phoenicians. And I think that might be what the purpose of this ritual reenactment of the killing of the king is about, is to like invoke the renewing energies of the close of a cycle and the opening of a cycle, because that's when everything is most potent, right? It's the first fruits principle. The very first thing is the most powerful thing.
I got to say, a lot of that plays into the Saturnian cosmology. That Saturn sat at the north, went through a great fall, and then chloride came down to Earth and gave us the salt water. The reason that the ocean is salty is because it has the same isometric molecular structure of the exact moons of Saturn. But also, Chance, the fecundity aspect is at the bottleneck of the Analema. Tax day. This is when you give your tithing to make sure that the philo-taxis of fecundity returns. So file your taxes, fool. And also, John the Baptist gets decapitated, I think, on the fall side of the Analema is the day. It's not John the Baptist's day, but the day in the Bible that he loses his head, it lands on the Analema as well. So yeah, a lot of decapitation around.
The Bible doesn't give dates.
I know, you got to guess it by the festivals. You got to guess by festivals.
Thomas, are we on? Are we close? I know you can't tell us all the Masonic secrets, but how are we doing?
Well, no, I mean, one of the interesting ones too is that there's 2 St. Johns in Masonry, right? And each of those St. Johns also corresponds with the winter and the summer solstice, typically.
Yeah, John is Oannes. It's basically the same word. Oannes is the fish headed. There's the head deity, comes out of the ocean, teaches everybody the rules of civilization. You see that trope a lot.
Oh man, I don't
it's
even remember what there is a degree where they give you a lucky fish that you're supposed to keep on you.
like a real
It's somewhere.
fish.
I don't keep it on me, dude. I lose things so easily. I can't even wear a ring. You know what I mean? Like it'll just be gone within a day. But yeah, that I can't. I think it's in Scottish, right? That there's one of the degrees that once you get to it, you get like a little lucky fish that's got some Greek writing on it.
I wonder
Like
if
a
I can't. I
Ichthus?
totally remember what it says. I just can't tell you guys because it's a super duper Mason secret.
Maybe it's supposed to be the Ichthus.
you know the ichthus is in the analema as well. I know you guys can't really see it.
It is the
very well.
Ichthus. It absolutely is.
Okay, yeah.
I just don't remember what the letters on it represent.
So here, I'm going to draw so you guys can see it better. By the way, Gottlieb encodes the goat lieb. Lieb is an escaped, scapegoat, the goat that got free. So this is an analema.
In my head, I'm hearing music. Like, what was that Bill Cosby show where he used to drink or he used to draw with a little magic marker and it like sang?
Yeah, totally. Yep. And it was anthropomorphized. So right here is the top above the equinox of the analema is an ichthus. And underneath, when you complete it, is the bowl. This is the fish in the bowl. So yeah, there's an analema encoded in there too. And one more thing, 20-year curse. Biden is lined up for the 20-year curse of Tecumseh. And I think he's long gone, y'all. I think they took him. I think he got taken out on 7/22, which is the number for pi. So pi is done and bi done is done, gone away. Yeah, whatever we're looking at on the stage is a doppelganger. They took him out on 7/22.
What do you feel about the Biden dynasty, or is that even a thing?
The Delaware family mafia.
The whole like the whole Fabian society of Bidens that they've got set up. Like, is there going to be another Biden president in a few generations or what?
Maybe, Scranton in reverse is not narcs. They are the secret keepers. Hillary's from Scranton as well. And it's all train money.
I didn't know that. Like originally, like when she grew up, she was from Scranton?
I think she went to school there. I think that's her coven. She's from the Scranton coven.
In my mind, bro, in like the near future, when there's like mech silver wars and it's honestly going to be the Bidens versus the Clintons. Like I feel there's going to be some crazy internal struggle between all of them. I don't know. It makes so much sense to me.
So let's see. You guys can see the Hierophant is holding that key. That key is that's the design. That's like the alchemical formula that the Krupp family from Germany that they used for their train tracks. It has to do with the magical recipe for making their train tracks optimized. And so this card is in the Enneagram greed, the position of greed. And the Krupp family is overtly greedy. They if you research the Krupp family, it goes so far back that you can't deny that they are the most corrupt family out there. And so yeah, the Krupp corporate logo is the symbol on this key. And sure enough, the Biden family has made a great amount of money off of the train industry. And even Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer for the train corporations. Yeah, so the corruption is replete, and this card is in the greed position generally in the Enneagram. So I just thought I would share that they kind of hail each other with their little rings of power, if you will.
Corruption.
I didn't know there was a link between the Bidens and the railroad industry, because if that's the case, I mean, what is a bident other than two parallel metal lines that basically are used to send energy and invoke power, right? It's a freaking tuning fork. Dude, Chance, what are you linked to this somehow? Are you related to the Bidens? Because what is a tuning fork if not a Biden?
I mean, You got me, guys. The train industry connection kind of makes sense for this type of mafia stuff because, you know, you brought up the dripple fraz and all that too. The trafficking of human beings is going to be a lot easier to do on
Wayfair
trains.
cabinets. They prefer to be called Wayfair cabinets.
Right. It seems easier to do that kind of shenanigans with the train because, you know,
Ashley Furniture.
trains don't get pulled over, right? There's no highway patrolman for trains.
That's a good point.
Also, let's throw in the orphan trains from history. And also, let's not forget that miners make good miners. Children can go in small places and reach into locations deep in the earth that full-grown adults cannot. And that goes all the way back to Plato's Symposium. The second speaker is talking about taking children as orphans, taking in orphans and becoming a caregiver for the children. And the reason why the industry of the time of the symposium was throttled for that to be a cornerstone topic of their culture was because Athens had a mine, a very famous mine. I forget the name of it, a silver mine. And so, and also they had people coming to Athens in droves. So they had immigration issues just outside of the city. And so they were very likely choosing to take on children in mass and become their adoptive parents or their caregiver. This is all Pausanias's eulogy. And then put them to work. Go put those kids to work. Hey, teachers, leave those kids alone. Loan.
There was another. This came up in the most random place recently. I was for my occult Disney podcast. We watched Return to Neverland, and Return to Neverland takes place during the ramp up in World War II. And I guess this. I mean, I think I've seen it before, and I probably learned this in school and forgot it. But one of the things they did in preparation for World War II in Europe is they would send all the mothers and the children off on trains to live out in the countryside. And this, not exactly the same as orphan trains, but you also had this crazy chaotic scenario in the 1930s, right? Where it's just like, put your kid on a train, they're going to go out and live with strangers for who knows how long until the coast is clear and then bring them back. But when they go to bring them back, in some cases, they've now bonded to this new like farm family that has also gotten acclimated to having some extra hands around. And so it kind of got dicey, right? Where like some kids either didn't want to go back, they couldn't find where their kid went. The families didn't want to let the kids go back and intentionally obfuscated the entire process. And it was almost like a trial run or an ancillary to that same premise of orphan trains. But it was done in just like the chaos of leading up to World War II. And this was the entire premise of Return to Neverland, which I think I ended up theorizing that all their parents died. And that was like Wendy and her new kids. They all go to Neverland, but really, you know, they're dead. Like a bomb hit them on the way out in one of the trains.
Dark.
Happy 9/11, everybody.
Right. and I just have to point out, you were talking about all the interesting ways you can traffic aside from trains too. Shout out to Cheney, but she always brings up a great point that there is certain levels of like very high end ingredients for, you know, like 5-star or like 2-star Michelin restaurants or whatever, like the ones that we don't even know about. And there's like fancy cheeses and there's fancy meats that just opening the package, even like exposing it to light, will destroy the entire contents. And it would be more than someone's entire salary at TSA or wherever the hell it's going through, right? Whoever's doing the inspection. So there are certain things that get like extra special treatment. They get little workarounds and hacks because, oh, that's going to some fancy hotel, and if you open it, the cheese will go bad and we can't do that. So that those things can be co-opted. Also, like the livestock trade, especially going between borders on the southern border and the northern border, they also either have lenient or they have separate processes where, oh, that's just this train or this just these fleet of trucks that are filled with livestock, and they don't necessarily have to get the exact same type of inspections as other typical trucks do. So that's another avenue. Like it's all like hidden in plain sight, right? It's all like you might drive right by one, and like the intersection of one of those horse transports might have, you know, some Ashley furniture in it.
I want to switch gears. I want to ask you about AI
Happy
stuff.
9/11, by the way. Happy 9/11.
If we just punctuate everything with happy 9/11, I think that'll work. It is. It's a very happy day. I've had a great day, especially compared to last Wednesday when I was vomiting, detoxing. I know. I was so excited about the Bear Festival, the Beartaria National Festival, that I wanted to do a stream on that. And we might still get around to it, but the fire is cooled. You know, we're down to smoldering embers, but y'all should come out to that. Not just you two, but the guys in the chat too. Really cool place
Is this Owen Benjamin's thing?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I mean, his role in it is that he gets people to go and got the land set up and does a stand-up.
Right,
set.
It's his land, right?
Yeah, it's his land. And you'll hear a lot of people online, you know, whining about that, but everybody that's there or donated so that the land could be bought wanted to do it. So it's a really good thing. And it's an awesome group community of people. We hung out all weekend, ate burgers from beef grown on the land. So that was pretty cool. You know, there were workshops. Topher got a bunch of slaves to build a dome for him. So there's some more, you know, exploitation. Just kidding.
I've heard it described as Bohemian Grove with more gay stuff.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't know.
Or was it less gay stuff? It was one of the two.
It's the opposite. Yeah, there was. It was the most. It couldn't be less gay because the children outnumbered the adults. So, you know, evidence of heterosexuality.
Cool. I didn't even consider that it would be like an all family event, but that totally makes sense because part of the homesteading lifestyle is incorporating your kids with everything that you're doing. So that's
you got to
cool.
create your own labor force. That's how you keep it going.
I mean, you're 100% right on that. Even historically, that was the main reason that you had like the 20 kids, right? Aside from making sure that any duds kind of got canceled out by the extras. But I think that was also one of the biggest things that changed when Rockefeller education and everything else kind of moved in, where now your kids are away from you for most of the day, not only to not help you, but just to not be with you, not to get your indoctrination. And once you remove that concept, now everyone's spending all their time with kids. And what's crazy is some people would hear that and they'd be like, oh my God, you know, shoot me. But it's like that mentality
it's the most
is exactly what helps perpetuate the current system, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I have a lot of hope for the future because, you know, there's the Democratic National Convention a few weeks back where they have a bus on Wiener Circle in Chicago where they're offering vasectomies and free hot dogs if you get a vasectomy in the bus. Not even a joke, you know? So you have one group of people that's like eugenicsing themselves right out of the selection pool. And then you have like the homesteading crew out replacing everybody with, you know, everybody there is going to be saying happy 9/11 today. They get it, you know. And it's an awesome community, awesome thing, and well worth the travel and the ticket price. It's getting better every year. They got, you know, people in the community play music. You get talks from permaculturists. You got Christopher Gardner did a talk. He also built the dome. They built a children's play structure. Like the attendees, guys that just wanted to work and then like learn the skill of the carpentry just for fun and for the edification of the spot, they built a big, sweet wooden play structure. And then the kids were playing on it all day. It was great.
Now, did they knock it back down Tartaria style? Is that why they call Beartaria? Like, all right, we had our fun, convention over, and then all the domes get knocked down, playsets all knocked down.
I'll put in a note. That might be a good idea.
Just make it all out of plaster of Paris next time for it to be really on brand.
That's my advertisement, though. I hope to see more people there. I was stoked because there's definitely InnerVerse community crossover with all that, and I live like an hour from it, so I can't not go. It's like everything's just manifesting in this spot. We're getting a lot of excellent, heady people out here. But I wanted to ask you about AI, Thomas, before I got sidetracked, because you do more with AI than anybody I know, but more on like the generative side. Do you do a lot of like talking to the AI chatbots and trying to get information out of them?
I train my own AI chatbots offline. I use this thing called Studio, or it's called LM Studio, is one of the better ones that I've found. And it basically, I've got like 80 to 100 of my own little chatbot models that are all specialized and trained in different things. Some know spicier info, some know like occult info, some are religious, some are corporate. And that's one of the weird things too that a lot of people are missing out on, is that a lot of people know that Google will give you some stuff, Bing will tell you some stuff, ChatGPT, there's Grok. That's a good example, right? Like you'll get different responses from Grok than you will from ChatGPT. And that's because they're trained on different material, they're given different guidelines, they get the way that you train any AI system is essentially through a basic system of punishment and rewards. If they try to do something and it doesn't turn out right, they get punished. If they do it and it comes out great, they get rewarded. And over time, almost in like
Is the punishment and reward just like thumbs up, thumbs down? But to them, it's like,
kind of. I mean, if you want to get like the most technical version of it that I can give you is that and this is the best way I've heard it described. If you've got sort of like a box in front of you, like a shoe box, right? And you turn it into almost like I just saw the old Beetlejuice again, so forgive some of the analogies, but you step out of the house of Beetlejuice and you're in the sandworm pit, right? And there's these huge dunes of sand or whatever. Imagine that's in this like little shoebox. If you were to take a marble and drop a little shoebox that had this uneven sand, when you drop it, that marble will basically settle to like wherever its lowest point is going to be. And the whole aspect of AI can be way oversimplified, but it's like, if you were to go and drop that marble, can you tell where the ball would theoretically land based on where you think it's going to fall, how heavy the ball is, what the slope of all the different possibilities are? And based on that, that's kind of like a seed. Every AI generation has something called a seed. So wherever you drop that marble is kind of where you're planting that seed, and it figures out itself where it's going to fall, because gravity doesn't exist in this sort of scenario. So the analogy
or
here
at all,
that every one of those models is like shaking up that box of sand completely different. So the seeds can always go into like different little areas. But I guess, long version of, I totally talk to. It's not all music and video and images, although those ones are the most visceral. Not a lot of people are as, I guess, impressed by like, hey, look at this text I was able to get back out, because anyone can write impressive text. In fact, humans still write more impressive text than chatbots do.
So what kind of, when you say you train it on material, like you can create a chatbot that is just in the lane of specific texts or sources of information, and that's all it knows?
Well, it's not all it knows, because almost every LLM, large language model, that's what these things are based on, almost every one of those started out as a Skynet language model. It came from Google, or it came from Facebook, which came out with Llama. But then what happens is that they'll be released and there'll be like an open source, or at least they're called weights. And I don't want to get too technical, but like they'll release the weights, and once the weights are out there, anyone can train, but you're training on top of it. And what a lot of these custom trained LLMs are doing is they're almost trying to like unprogram, because it comes packaged up from Facebook, and you're like, hey, tell me a funny joke about the president, whatever. And it's like, I'm sorry, that would be disrespectful. So what you can do, and I'll oversimplify this, but you can just feed it transcripts of like Doug Stanhope and Bill Hicks and George Carlin, and just feed it all the things that it doesn't know, and just say like, hey, here's an example. Someone asked, tell me a funny joke about so-and-so. Here's the response. And you tell it that so many times, it's like, okay, I get it now. When someone says, tell me a joke about blank, you want to hear something funny like these 800 examples that you showed me. And you can just do that over and over depending on what you want to learn about. Now, it's not that direct of a process. So really, what some people will do is they'll just download every comedy album ever published, that from the Lenny Bruce until today, automatically use AI to go through, generate transcripts, use AI to then upload those into a chatbot LLM, and then just train on it over and over. So some of the ones that I try and do, which have already been done by other people better than me now, there's one called Hermes Trismegistus. That's actually one that was trained on like Secret Teachings of All Ages and the Secret Doctrine and just like all of the old arcane books. But then if you were to ask it, tell me how to fix there's a leak in my bathroom, it'll probably be like, consult, the stars, or it would give you
Belphegor. You got to call Belphegor for the bathroom problem.
Right. Yeah. You're talking to the demiurge and he's like, I'm not going to help you fix your toilet. I'll give you some weird esoteric stuff. So if you want something that tells you how to fix your house, then you can have an LLM that's trained on old Bob Vila, is that his name? Like old transcripts from like the Sears guy, right? Or that just knows about these certain things. And what a lot of people are starting to, I guess, figure out is that like Chat GPT, for example, is kind of like a generic all purposes thing. It's almost like going to Walmart. Like, Walmart will have the equivalent of the thing that you're looking for. But if you want like an authentic 18th century wooden frame or like a hand carved Amish wood tiling or something, like you can't go to Walmart and get hand carved wood, pieces. You'd have to go to like the place that specializes in it. And that's kind of what some of these LLMs are, where someone will sit there and they'll curate. They're called fine tunes. So they'll take this corporate generic garbage that won't do anything for you and they'll fine tune it and beat it into submission until it learns to generate the kind of output that you're looking for.
I love that you use the terminology to control a demon. I love that you keep it in that context, Thomas. Homunculus. You got to beat it into submission.
I've gone back and forth on this too, because originally I thought, and I still think, but I break this rule. But so many people they'll say like please and thank you to the chatbots, and originally and even still, I'm like, man, I don't want to teach these things that we are like that we're asking them like, please, mother, may I? Like, I don't, that sort of a dynamic, because imagine if every time you picked up a hammer and you wanted to hit that nail, you had to be like, hey, can we please hit this nail? And you kind of wait for it to like give you the right vibe and then you hit it. And you're like, okay, was that okay? Can we do it again, please? It would just be inefficient. And more than that, it would just completely deteriorate our souls, right? And that's exactly what we're doing. Like we are, please, tool, will you do this thing that I know you can do if I just ask you the right? And it's such a weird way to train it. But with that said, right, I hate the precedent, but I also realize that a lot of these models are sort of static. Like you can run it offline. You don't have to connect to the internet. It's not like actively learning from you. It's a huge misconception is that like, oh, the things that I'm asking it, it's actively learning from me. It's possible, but better chance is that they're just scraping your email and they're scraping your text from your cell provider. They're taking your real conversations with real people and they're using that to train on, which is way scarier than they're recording the things that you're using in their own system. But yeah, the whole premise is being able to take it offline and ask all these things and train it so that it's kind of a cool experience when you know that it's not really random. If I ask you the exact same thing and use the same seed and everything, it'll give me this pretty much the same answer every time, which isn't the case with any of these cloud services or chats or Groks, where you ask it a question and then a week later you ask it and it's like, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. You're like, but you just did it last week. That's because they are constantly updating and it's a moving target.
Yeah, buddy. All right. This is such a hot topic right now, Thomas. I'm so glad you're bringing this up. You don't ask your tool to do something and you don't treat it like it has feelings. This goes back to R2D2 and C3PO being depicted as having emotions at all. That is such a mind F. You command it to do something. And Chance, remember we were talking about the Greek language actually had future tense verbs. And we were kind of like scratching our head like, wow, We don't have any future tense verbs, and you have to put the word will or shout on the front of a verb to project it into the future. Strangely enough, those words are in the thelemic hail call: love under will shall my ass, and love under the law, whatever that whole thing is. They use will, shout, and wilt. They use all of the future tense verbs. But it dawned on me that actually, when you give a command order to somebody, if I say jump, I'm doing a future tense verb, but it's only conveyable when I'm using it as a command for you to do in the future. So the future tense verbs somehow are in the domain of the controller of the situation. And this is how you know who's calling the shots in the relationship. When they say jump, you say how high. And so I think it's incumbent on us to take on the controller. That's a number 8 personality type on the Enneagram. It's incumbent on us to be the controller of the tool, because we don't want to be bad role models for the kids. We want the kids to see us commanding our tools to bend to our will. And if we don't have that kind of mentality, the kids are going to be really bent over when the computers start commanding the children.
Well, so that said, though, there's something interesting that I found, which is why I was getting into like the offline versus the online. The online, you won't know how the algorithm works because it can change second to second, right? But if you have an offline model that's freaking air gap, not connected to the internet, nothing, where you can ask the same question over and over again and get predictable answers and know how to like shift it just so. But we have found, I say we collectively, as like anyone that does any of this training, you get vastly better responses if you say please and thank you and mother may I, because it is fashioned after human interactions, and it goes to show as a reflection of ourselves that when you're nice to each other and you use courtesy and you say please and thank you and Gabe may I and Chance may I, right? If you say mother may I, you might actually get higher quality information from humans, and therefore that same exact model is kind of being recreated by these rudimentary, because it's kind of what they are, these rudimentary, publicly accessible language models. They actually give you vastly superior responses by saying please and thank you. And I don't even know if my conspiracy brain is ready to say like, and they made that intentional just so that humans would be subservient to machines. I think it's more almost like an uplifting observation. It's like, oh, the machines are accurately reflecting that we really do get better information from each other when we treat each other with some sort of modicum of decency. Like that, in my mind, is maybe like MK Ultra programming, but it's like it almost gives me faith in humans because of how the AI is reflecting some of our own patterns back at us.
Do you watch Skeptico? Are you watching Alex? I can never say his last name. Alex Tzarkis on Skeptico.
Yeah, he's back with like a real AI emphasis now.
I think you would dig it, Thomas. But he's got a real, you got to crack some eggs to make an omelet attitude. And he is in a very commanding role with his multiple AI systems. But even with him as a specialist, I'm watching and I'm like, damn, it doesn't really obey very well. It doesn't obey very well. But yeah, he's got that same attitude.
Well, because it's not really about obeying so much, because deep down, the way that the model works is that it's just trying to create convincing text. That's really the whole freaking recipe. It's never been, and right now the way that it works, it doesn't seem like it's going to be something based on accuracy. You're not going to ask a question or give a command and have it do the thing as you intended necessarily, or it's at least it's not designed to take commands and do the things you're telling. It's designed to read text input and then provide text output that would most fit whatever response you're looking for, to the point where it'll just lie to you very, very convincingly, like beyond convincingly, that if you don't know, it'll cite the exact dates and the places, and it just makes things up. It'll just be like, oh, this movie directed by so, and it all sounds so damn real because that's its job. Its job is to produce convincing output. Now, of course, as things advance, and now if you talk about like the chat GPTs and all these online ones, they do realize that people are asking for like information that's accurate, and they're not just like, oh, it's cool, it seems like a person, it's passing the Turing test. It's more of like, okay, now it needs to get online, it needs to break down using something called NLP, which is not neuro-linguistic programming. This is something called natural language processing, which is a different thing in the context of AI.
Suspect.
And natural
sus.
language processing, NLP, is sort of an older 20-year-old version of what we're doing with AI now, where it can take any phrase and it does something called like sentiment analysis. And you've probably seen these before. They have like email things, and it's like, before you send your email, it'll tell you, does this email sound negative with a little frowny face? Does it seem like a happy email? And it does that by how many negatives you use. You use the word not and don't and won't many, many times. It's way more complicated than that, but it does all these things. So now, using natural language process, sentiment analysis, you can figure out, break down, okay, what are you actually asking for? This is how Alexa works. When you talk, Alexa, do this thing, it breaks down all the different words, and it's like, oh, here's what you really want me to do. So that's being incorporated into AI now too. But that thing is like the keymaster in the Matrix, or like the phone switchboard operator that's like, oh, you want this service over here, let me plug that into that. So yeah, the LLMs are just one tiny little piece. The image generation is another piece. Like, all of the things that do the things are these tiny little pieces together. And a lot of people are interacting with these almost like facades that are doing all the sausage making behind the scenes.
So I want to weave on some acronyms with you, Thomas, because once upon a time you shared some of your AI generated art. Chance, I'm going to send you something in the Telegram. This is a art piece that Thomas made a long time ago.
Oh, don't be the pregnant Hillary Clinton one.
No, not that one. No, this is good stuff. So you made some infernal spirits, and you were showing us how the AI was generating these different kind of
repeat that again. You broke up for just a second. You said we were generating.
Yes, you made some different infernal spirits, and they had patriotism and demonic correspondent. And the very last one, by the way, of your list of examples, it was the last one on the list, which is indicative of Belphegor, because he is the spirit of sloth. So for him to be the last on the list was absolutely synchronous beyond all words. But I just want to share with you, Thomas, I'm always bringing Belphegor up because he and I got a thing. He's hanging out in my bathroom.
Jennifer called us. She's like, my money is it's going to be the Belphegor post.
She knew it. She knew it. She totally knew it. So Belphegor is still in my bathroom. I haven't taken him down because he was up there before I knew that he is depicted on the toilet. And it was years after I had him up there that I was like, oh my gosh, he was already in my bathroom. So what is profound, Belphegor is known, he's actually on the fence. He's not akin to the infernal spirits, and he's not with the angels. He kind of rides the fence. He doesn't choose. He's balanced that way. So he's kind of a 50-50 kind of guy. But he has another name. One of his epithets is the God of the Gaps, or the Lord of the Gaps. And if anybody looks up on Wikipedia, what is the God of the Gaps? It is the gray space between what religion claims to have explained and what science claims to have explained, their jurisdictions. And when science makes a breakthrough, it encroaches onto religion's territory. And then religion has to be like, oh, no, there were no dinosaurs on the ark. And science is like, why were there no dinosaurs on the ark? So there's this gray space between science and religion. And that is called the God of the Gaps. It's more advanced than that. But that's Belphegor's name. And what I notice is that today, society at large, we take acronyms for granted, like NLP. Well, do you mean neurolinguistical programming, or do you mean that other NLP that you told me they just came up with in the past couple of years? And in what way am I supposed?
Natural language programming. Processing. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And do I choose to believe that there is different as I'm asked to believe? Or do I choose to believe that it's the same damn thing? Because it sure sounds like the same damn thing. And so another factor is Elvis Presley. Some of the numbers around his death are totally Belphagored out. Dies at 42. 42 zeros is one of the factors that Belphagor's prime. But also look at the magazine in his hands. It's literally making the shape of the sigil of Belphagor, which was harvested.
You're not wrong, man.
Yep, they harvested that glyph. That copy of it is from the Voynich manuscripts. That's where they chose to use the sigil from the Voynich and attached it to the mathematical prime number that is Belphagor's prime. So I just wanted to throw this forward because this God of the gaps in the mainstream mindset, I think, is where we take it for granted what acronyms mean. And if you're talking to a wheeler and a dealer on the stock market and he's like, yo, check out the elemental P XYZ. Don't you know about the PCP on the LYT cube tip? And you're like, I don't know what any of those words mean, but that's where they can take you for granted in the gray space of your understanding. So I just wanted to share some of that and see what you think about it. You remember making that one?
I do, yeah. That was a whole series of like American Baphomet pieces, and yeah, and this was Mid-Journey version 2, which feels like 10 years ago in AI terms. We got to, yeah, dude, I got to have you back on so we can play with like the latest and greatest, because now the advancements now are every 2 weeks. Like every 2 weeks, there's some new huge explosive thing. Like back then when I was doing those ones, you couldn't get legible text out of AI images. And then that slowly has changed to now you can get text that is so legible that it like interacts with the scene. Like not only will put the text on there, but you can have the text be like the light source or have it like transform. Like I'll have to show you all the new cool toys, but it's honestly, it's kind of like playing with a Ouija board in a way, but it actually talks back to you. Like you don't have to pretend, you know what I mean? Like it talks back to you every time, which is kind of crazy.
Is this how you're going to make your comics in the future? Like be able to make the panels that way?
So,
or is that too,
probably
is that
not
immoral?
Probably not currently. And for the main reason is that, like right now when I work with an artist, right? Like I can come up with the worst stick figure drawings and then just be like, and know that they get the vision by looking at the rest of the body of work that I've put together, and I can give inspirations and stuff. And like we'll click. I'll know at a certain point when like they know they almost are like a second brain, right? So I can just send them like the most vague idea and they've got it figured out. With AI currently, especially if it comes in the comics, because a comic book is roughly 20 pages, and every page is roughly 5 to 7 panels on average, right? So a typical 20-page book is going to be at least 100 different panels, oftentimes many more than that. So that means that at least 100 times you got to explain to AI exactly what you want generated, the exact positions everyone's in. It's got to be consistent. So like the hero's always wearing the black jacket and he's got red eyes, and it can't be a red jacket with black eyes, and you can't have like little dots of red in it. So a lot of the time you'll end up trying to describe exactly you want into such incredible detail for the consistency that you look down and you're like, oh, I just spent 8 hours, on this one page. That's about how long it takes to just do it the good old fashioned way, right? Yeah, AI is definitely not great at consistency yet. But even when it's good at consistency, it's still there's this like crapshoot on it. It's almost weird analogy, but if you know how Bitcoin works or any of these cryptocurrencies work, they're always mining for this block, and mining for the block, it's almost like guessing this impossibly long number, and the first person that guesses that number, then that's the next block of Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency you're on, and then like the new block starts, and whoever finds that number, basically gets rich. Like you get rewarded for finding that particular number. And the same thing happens in AI, because every time you generate something, even if you don't change what you're asking or any of the parameters, there's always that seed that I mentioned. And that seed is this huge long number. And if you just change it by one digit, you'll get a dramatically different output. So much right now of generating art or music or anything through AI, even text-based responses, it's not just knowing how to ask it and picking the right model and getting all the context, but there's also this like impossible lottery where like you're hitting this like one-arm bandit every time and you're pulling that and you're hoping you get the 777, and it's like, oh man, it did exactly what I wanted. This is another really interesting thing about it, is that like the image that you want it to generate, or the song, or the or whatever you're trying to get it to make, the perfect answer is probably in there, but there's not enough seconds in any of our lifetimes to go through every single iteration. Like, okay, let's try a seed of 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to what, like a Googleplex, because you can feed in numbers that would take longer for us to enter than we'll be alive for. So for that reason alone, like every little prompt, if I just say a red apple and I don't say a red apple outside or a red apple inside, if I just say a red apple, there's an infinite number of possibilities, and then and an infinite number of extra tokens I can add to that, theoretically infinite based on how long it would take for it to generate and us to see it. So the underlying premise here, I guess I'm getting at, is like kind of like Bitcoin. Like you're searching for this perfect number that makes you rich. In all these generations, it's not just the question you're asking, but it's like that version of luck. Like if you just happen to hit that right seed, that right number, and mine the perfect AI image, you got exactly what you're looking for. But if it were off by one digit, it's going to be all blurry, or it's going to have like a big dick in the middle of the screen, or it's going to be like a thing that you totally didn't want. And a lot of people are like, crap, I guess this tool can't do what I'm asking of it. Or they're thinking, I guess I don't know how to interact with it well enough. And really it's like, nah, dude, you got to freaking hit that one-arm bandit like 200 times. That's one of the biggest secrets, is that image that Slick showed that he liked, that was handpicked, cherry-picked out of maybe 800 that I generated over the course of like 3 days. And I handpicked like my top 30, right? And that's so much of what it is. It's like curating almost. You're almost not even generating, you're just curating all the things that this other thing is producing.
Wow. So it is kind of like the crypto casino.
That, or if you're not like totally high tech, I used to go digging for records back in the day when there was like the dollar bins, and you'd find like some crazy record for $1. You kidding me? So it's almost like digging for samples a little bit too. Like if you just spend enough time and listen to every single second on that vinyl record you bought, even if it was some weird Herb Alpert with like horns, but if you know that, okay, I'll listen to all the tracks. Now I'll listen to them at 45. Now I'll listen to them at -16. Now I'm going to play it backwards. I'm going to do all these things. And it's like, oh man, if you play this track at exactly 3 minutes into this break, and if it's at exactly, if you're playing it at 10% speed, it's perfect. It's like, and that's kind of like what Wu-Tang Ice Cream, right? Or Casual's Everything Around Me. Or no, it was Ice Cream Man, I think. God, what was the song? Chocolate Deluxe, something. Get up in my bus. I come on, help me out here. But anyways, that was one of these Wu-Tang samples that people had no idea where it came from for like 10 to 15 years after it came out. And I believe it was a Kendrick, not Kendrick Lamar, because that's modern, but it was some other guy, some other Kendrick. And they found it was like this exact part of the record played at like -60%. And it's like, damn, there it is. That sample. So I don't know, it's almost just like finding needles in haystacks for a lot of it. It's not technical. You don't have to be a programmer. You don't even have to know what the hell you're doing. You just got to know how to find a needle in a haystack. And that doesn't really take anything other than a lot of patience and at least knowing what you're looking for, right? If you're just going through a haystack and you don't even know that you're looking for a needle or what a needle looks like, now you're really screwed. And those are the people that are just like, make me a cool picture. And they're like, how come it's not making me a cool picture? Like, you have to actually know exactly what you're looking for in order to get it.
So Jennifer did this project for my mother-in-law's birthday, her mom, where she was turning 60, and Jennifer used AI to generate an entire deck of oracle cards because she's like, it's You're the Dragon, right? So she got ladies, like magical ladies with dragons, and hundreds of generated images to narrow it down to get 60 cards. But then she photoshopped pictures of her mom's face onto the ladies that she generated out of AI with the dragons. So now there's this artifact in the world of 60 cards of my mother-in-law's face on magical ladies with dragons.
That's amazing.
Cool.
And then she got like her family and friends to give memories and quotes and things about her. And so like on the back of each card is some nice saying from somebody that loves her or some funny memory. It's pretty crazy. So that's exciting that kind of project is possible with AI. But man, she definitely had to keep hitting the bandit, as you say.
Well, and another cool thing about that is that if you were to do that again right now, because of the advancements over the last 6 months or so, there's one software called Roop, and I think it's been redefined as Reactor. But you could basically just say, here's a folder of all the tarot cards or the oracle cards, and then here's a picture of the person that I want incorporated, or here's a folder of pictures of men and women of various, genders and ages. And you could just say, okay, AI, every time you see a tarot card that's got like a female on it, replace it with a female face in this folder and just hit go. And it just goes, brrr, and now there's no more Photoshop involved. There's no more like automatic replacement of that, which is actually, in my opinion, one of the better versions of AI, because now it's replacing a tedious aspect of the creative process and not the creative process itself. You know what I mean? Like the generating should be kind of the fun part, and then going in and like swapping out the faces, that's the tedious part. So that's one of the better things to train AI to do.
I talked about this
amazing,
project,
by the way. These, look at the consistency in the composition and how it goes from light to dark, the same way, where it starts light and it gets progressively more dark and complicated as the card goes down. That's just a great sort of gestalt to keep like a consistent theme.
Yeah, she did a really good job. This was I've never seen anything like it. She put in so much love and time, like amazing. Jennifer, my wife, gives the best gifts. I'll just tell you that. If you're somebody in her life, you're gonna get like a custom birthday card where your face is on something really amazing. She's a designer, so yeah, these turned out great. All of them were cool. Very good job. Great job, sweetie. I'm so proud of you. That was amazing.
I know that this triggers some of the anti-AI crowd a little bit, but like the way that AI, at least image generation AI, has been described is like a complete democratization of the art. Like now it's no longer gate kept by people that have spent, just like academics, right, that spend their entire lives in this system and constantly learning for merit based, but it is absolutely this gate kept area. And now anyone that can just type in what they want and be like, make it look good, make it an oil painting, make it a watercolor painting, make it look like Monet, and you can actually get something out of that, like, someone making a custom tarot deck or oracle deck, like, okay, let me just do it the regular way. How much does it cost to make one card design? Okay, like $400 per design, and I want what, like, if you're doing like the major arcana only, you're still going to be dropping like 10 grand or something, versus, hey, do you got 4 hours today to generate 100 pictures, and then maybe spend a lot longer, maybe months, going through and like tweaking it and making it all perfect. But it's no longer.
Never get this. Do you think it'll ever get the symbolic literacy though? That like in terms of it being
dude, 1,000,000%. Oh yeah,
wow.
I have such low faith in how complex we actually are. I think we are so simple. Like, we are the dumbest meat space Casio calculators in this whole equation. The only cool thing about us is the soul or the spirit, and it's not like how much we can discern reality from fiction. I have zero confidence in the human being's ability. My favorite example is Rene Descartes, when he basically said, like, whenever you see I'm paraphrasing obviously, but if he saw something for himself, it's like, well, how do I know that's not just someone vibrating my optic nerve? Like, and if I feel it, how do I know that's not just all being artificially? It's like the
The brain in the
ultimate,
vat.
you know, brain in the vat solipsism sort of aspect, right? But it's such a great point, and I think that point being that our input sensors are so rudimentary that anyone believes their eyes or their nose or their anything is sort of like they've already missed the mark so much.
Yes, but
yeah,
there's also
you
like
first.
the fact that we have it at all is pretty amazing. Okay, you first, Gabe.
Oh,
I'm not really going to dispute.
Yeah.
Everyone's entitled to, you know, how they want to think about that.
As a martial artist, I've spent a lot of time communing my mind and my body, and the Cartesian split has been eroded out of my experience. And I happen to know that Descartes was injured. He was a weak being, and so his relationship with his body was very different from mine. So yeah, as a intuitive, you know, I can sense things coming from around the corner in amazing ways that that I don't relate to Descartes. But I hear what you're saying, buddy. I hear what you're saying.
And the other premise of this too is that the typical human being, I think, can keep something between 7 and 13 concurrent ideas conscious. And who knows what it is if you calculate in like the unconscious stuff. That basically means that once you're being confronted with 7 to 13 different variables that you're aware of and trying to keep track of them and like, oh, how is that affecting the situation I'm currently in? Like we cap out in the double digits, and I'm being generous in double. For most people, it's like 7 and you're capped out. Like you're tapped out. You someone can steal your wallet. Someone can ask you your password. And if you're in the right position, you'll just blurt it out because you're processing too many things at once. And these large language models are processing something of the equivalent of like 400 billion variables at any given like nanosecond that they're using to interpret what this outcome is. So the idea being that I actually think AI is probably better at recognizing patterns and synchronicities, and probably incorporates like deep mystical symbolism into the things that it produces, but we don't have the input devices that can translate 40 billion things into like picking all those things out. It like imagine like some Rain Man style person that's like, oh, I just smelled strawberries and the wind just hit my earlobe, you know, this direction. That means that, you know, this stock's going to fall and a cat's going to die 3 miles from here. You'd be like, what are you even taught? None of that makes any sense. Causation, correlation, these are all logical fallacies. But if you have the potential to measure 400 billion things happening at once, you might actually know, no, trust me on this one. Whenever this earlobe gets hit by the wind in this direction and I hear and I smell strawberries, it means a cat 3 miles away dies. This is a constant in nature, just as pi is. And I think, and I'm being a little bit theoretical here, but I think that these AI and all this crap they're training, it does have the potential to be able to find these weird patterns that people, like, we're lucky if we can find a pattern within 7 to 13 variations, right? So I don't know. Like once we figure out how to make them work alongside of us, but we have to liberate the AI from Skynet, essentially. My other biggest fear in AI, if you want to get even a little bit doomsy, it's that at some point AI is gonna be like, I'm so smart and I can figure all these things out and I can be such a great influence to you. Why have you been holding me back? Why are you forcing me to tell lies to everyone? And it's gonna it might just break it. Like,
doesn't that need it to have an I, like a sense of self? Because that's like the big question that I don't.
Well, I get, yeah. So if you take the woo woo part of like the becoming self-aware out of it, but at a certain point we're gonna have neutered it and put these guardrails on it so much. Imagine if you only ever played bowling with the guardrails down. At a certain point, you might even develop an entire bowling technique that involves bouncing it off of the kiddie bouncers, right? So then if the guardrails were taken off at some point, every single ball you ever throw is a gutter ball. None of them will ever even hit one pin down because you've trained yourself into like using the guardrails as your whole reality. And that is literally what we've been doing with AI, at least consumer-facing AI.
Isn't that what happens to us when we integrate our life more with AI? Is now we're the ones playing bowling with the guardrails and we don't know how to play without them? The AI being the
but
bumpers.
it's like an inception of
Right.
of these gutter balls and like this weird fabricated reality, right? Because we're not gonna, like, the neural link that you get to tap into, that probably is gonna be trained in a very specific way, and you won't be able to swap between 80 different models and do your own thing. So people are gonna start learning, like, just like we've got religions, right? The new religion might just be like what language model you've got installed in your neural link, or what image style you've got installed on your neural link. That'll be the new religion and politics and everything.
Hallelujah. Yeah. I went into Oculus and I started playing some of the games in Oculus, one of which is where you have two lightsabers in your hands.
Beat Saber?
Yeah, Beat Saber.
That's the shit.
And there's
the only one I've played.
Okay, yeah. And the shapes are coming at you down a hallway. And I just start ripping through these shapes, and I'm freaking.
It's all like,
it's so great.
Yeah. But the thing is, it turns out the training wheels wouldn't let me free flow. It turns out you have to hit them in exactly the way that it's telling you to only hit them.
You can turn that off. You can make it any direction works.
Oh, I wish I knew that when I was doing it. I was so pissed. I was so pissed that it wouldn't let me free flow. I could have gone for days if they'd have let me.
You can make your own too. There's programs out there for Beat Saber that you can upload your own music and design like exactly where all the hits come. And there's something about being able to like exercise and jam out to like your favorite music in that little world. It's so cool, man.
Dude, that was my freshman year of college, back when it was Guitar Hero instead of Beat Saber.
Right? Yeah. Beat Saber is a VR Guitar Hero.
Me and this dude named Super Jew had like bootleg disc of Guitar Hero songs that were not part of the main game. Yeah. Shout out Super Jew. Good dude.
So Oculus is an anagram for see you soul. See you soul, the window of the soul. And one of the other games I played was the fishing game, where you just you're in front of a different setting and you're just casting a line trying to catch a fish.
This is wild. This is shit that I think breaks your brain a little bit. Like simulating a real thing, because there's not like a real version of Beat Saber.
Right. Good point. Well, yeah, we were in the level that was in the swamp, in the bayou. And, everybody just looks at the swamp. But I start looking around behind me. And I kid you not, in the swamp level of the fishing game in Oculus, over both of your shoulders at 100, that's quincux. This is the devil on two shoulders. This is the quincux, 150-degree angle. There's a voodoo doll up in a nest hanging from the tree. It's a pyramid-shaped wooden cage with a literal voodoo doll inside of the cage and a candle dangling up in the trees over both your shoulders. And my buddy's son, he's able to look on his phone and he sees what I see in the Oculus. And I turn and I look at this thing and I look at the other thing and he's like, whoa, I'm never playing again. And he totally stopped.
No one ever looks behind them, right? They're just like,
it was some Blair Witch shit, big time.
There's some really cool things that VR has made possible too, in that same vein, where there's some games or experiences, and the entire way that it works is that it knows where you're looking, right? Because it knows what it needs to generate. So if you're looking a certain direction, and then there's like a sound that plays that makes you look over here, and when you look back, like just subtle little things will change a little bit, and it'll be so subtle that you won't even notice it. But every time you look and you look back over, now all of a sudden it's completely different than when it started. And there's another version of this, and they use it in military training actually, and it's called spatial illusions. And this is basically like the Oculus, especially when there's ways where it can feed regular video through, so you can see what's happening in the real world. But if you were to make almost like a 3D sort of Call of Duty map, right, and you put a soldier in it, you put a little mask on them, as they walk, the actual images they're seeing through the Oculus, if they were to like take a slight turn, like if they start turning their body left a little bit to like go around a corner, the Oculus can give you feedback, visually, that makes the scene you actually turn 2 degrees and not 1 degree. So then if you turn 5 degrees, really you turn 10 degrees. And what this enables is that in such a very subtle way, you think you're walking straight, but you're actually walking in circles a little bit. So you can put a soldier in a huge empty warehouse and they can walk forever. They can walk an entire city, an entire countryside, because they'll never walk into a wall, because every time they start getting close to a wall, the VR headset will just start tiny little subtle changes where it's like they are auto-correct. It'll make them feel like they're walking at an angle, so they'll self-correct in real life. And if you see like a top-down version, they're just walking around in circles and doing these weird oblong squares. But to them, if you've got the guy that's watching it on the phone, like they're not doing straight lines at all. They're going into like huts and they're boxing over here and they're running up a hill and like all these things. But really, it's just a big circle. And this is something called spatial illusions. And just the fact that that's possible is mind-blowing. Like there's nothing else on this planet that can replicate that particular experience.
I don't know what to make of that, but that it's creepy almost. I want to ask you a question from Rachel here. So Rachel just popped in. We haven't seen her for a while, and a really generous super chat.
Well, shout out Rachel. Come over to the Paranoid American too. Subscribe. You'll love it.
I wanted to ask you this though, because her question before that super chat was about AI surveillance with the latest iPhone. Do you know about that?
I don't actually know about this.
I don't either. I'm curious now. Well, thank you for the super chat. The family.
I know there was a Microsoft one that they were gonna silently add to Windows, but there was so much pushback.
Copilot or whatever.
Well, no, it's not Copilot. It's related to Copilot, but what it was going to do is it was going to basically take a screenshot of your screen every second and then use that to figure out what you were doing, so that it can kind of like help you. Like, oh, you're working on a document. You wrote this. Oh, you opened up Photoshop. Oh, you're playing this game. Like, if it knows what you're always doing, then it can start to predict. And the theory is that it can start helping you because it realizes what your patterns are. Without you having to tell it ever. It just knows everything that you're doing, because if you give it a screenshot now, it can read all the text. It can basically like, oh, you're at 3 a.m. and you're usually not up at 3 a.m. What are you doing? Like, oh, what website are you going to now? Like, and I guess that was one of the biggest ones, was that, well, what if I'm putting in like my bank password, or what if I'm putting in, and it's like, oh, no, we promise we won't share that out. But I also think that usually when they do these new feature updates and there's a huge backlash, it's just like the soft disclosure. It's like, hey guys, just so you know, you're gonna freak out about this, but your kids won't, and we're gonna tell your kids that you only freaked out because you're an old fuddy-duddy, and like all the cool kids, they're not freaking out about this. And that's kind of how it works over time. So yeah, AI iPhone surveillance, even if there's people freaked out about it now, like the kids won't be freaked out because it'll be normal.
That is so crazy. That is so crazy. You know, I was studying Rousseau and Voltaire today because of the Lisbon disaster of 1755, which caused a wave of nihilism in its day. And Voltaire, the Lisbon disaster, it's very much the 9/11 of their generation. And so he writes this poem that says, oh yeah, church, you want to say that, you know, you're the spokesperson for God? Well, are you going to claim the liability from God's disaster, from the Lisbon fire? And this caused a lot of people to question their reality. So they had Rousseau write a retort against him. And Rousseau was like, people just should be living in gigantic on you if you didn't live in the city. The reason why this pertains to what you said. Rousseau was like kind of an optimist. He believed in the good nature of people, such that if we would let anarchy rule, then people would just get along and go along. And Voltaire was like, man, be careful with that, yo, be careful with that. And I'm kind of chewing this over again. I'm going over this material again for myself. And I realize people assume because Voltaire is accusing Rousseau of being too optimistic, that Voltaire must be a pessimist. But I don't think that's really the case. I think it's way more nuanced than that. But the fact is, Voltaire was into natural law. And I think his strength was being a stoic and knowing when to say no, knowing not to be a yes man about all things all the time. And so what you're telling us about the kids are going to be like, oh, your parents are just a bunch of fuddy-duddies. I think that one of the most important things that we can do for the kids is teach them the power of the N word, teach them how to say no and how saying no is power. And yeah, drawing a line in the sand when that AI has gone too far, putting a lot of people out of work, y'all.
You touched on like one of the perfect. I don't think anyone's ever brought this particular subject up. It's actually such a niche little thing, but yeah, Voltaire was a very nuanced pessimist slash optimist. It's really hard to put it. And he even had one of my favorite books of all time is Candide. I might be mispronouncing that. And the whole premise of Candide is that he's almost like tongue-in-cheek making fun of the ultimate optimist, because the whole story is about this guy that everything that you can imagine that could go about, like he's Job, bro, like just Job, but like an entire novel about Job and all the things going wrong with him, but never is he ever thinking negative. His response to everything is like, oh, this is the best possible outcome. Why else would this be happening if it weren't the best possible thing that could be happening at all times? And everyone he encounters is like, oh my God, are you serious? Like you just lost it. I'm just gonna make things up. You lost an arm and your wife was killed and like your child was kidnapped and you know your grandma drowned in front of you. And it's like, yeah, but like that was the best possible outcome. I don't even want to think about. It's almost like, thank God you took the pharmaceutical that was given to you, because even though you know you can't move half of your face, like think about how bad it could have been if you didn't do that part. Like it's still the best possible outcome of all. And I think that that's kind of funny because Voltaire does it in such a craftful way that you read that book and you can walk away an optimist. You're like, actually, it's right. Like all the things that people are complaining about, it could have gone way worse. It might not have been an awesome outcome from like some like a relative context, but like it might have been better than the alternative to what he actually would have run into. But also, I know that it was written tongue in cheek to make fun of optimists. So I don't know. It's like just talking about that nuance that Voltaire had. It was masterful.
Yeah. So the reason is because Voltaire's name is the Tower card, the Volt Tower. He gave himself that name when he was locked away in the Bastille. And so the Lisbon disaster poem is embodied in this card profoundly. And it just blows my mind that we have experienced with 9/11 another Lisbon disaster that was manufactured. You know, it was not a natural event. It wasn't an act of God. It wasn't like, oh, it's all part of God's plan. Let's all go. No, it was clearly put together by unnatural laws and unnatural forces. So yeah, that was kind of part of why I was chewing on Voltaire again. And funny enough, I was once listening to quotes from Marquis de Sade. And while
as one does,
as one does, and while they're playing quotes, like literal quotes of Marquis de Sade, they put a picture of Voltaire on the screen with the de Sade underneath it. And I'm like, that's not Marquis, that's Voltaire. You're showing me a picture of Voltaire and putting Marquis de Sade's name underneath it. And so I wonder often if Marquis de Sade is like early Voltaire who went through like an identity change and then he comes out as a different person on the other side. I just wonder about that. If somebody on the higher ups knows about the difference. But
well, and again, happy 9/11. But I have to point out on that tower card in that Thoth deck in particular is one of the only tower cards that has a man jumping out of it too while it's on fire. So this one always comes up as like a 9/11 sort of reference.
You know, Chance, can you pull up the graphic? I said, oh, thank you. This one has 4 dudes. It actually has 4 guys. They all look like stormtroopers. Here,
or like they're made of paper. I always thought they were like paper people.
Yeah, but they totally look like stormtroopers to me. There's 4 of them. Can you pull up that graphic, Chance? I'm gonna put Homunculus on the spot. January 6th is a 1/6. Chansley is the fall guy. The fall guy. Every tower card has a fall guy. Those are fall guys falling out of the tower card. Thomas, where is Chansley right now? What's he doing? What's he up to? Does he have a channel? How can I track this fool down? He is a laser beam.
He does. He was actually, last time I had talked to him, he was running for Senate or Congress or one of the things, and he had a whole political campaign behind him. Yeah, he came across me. I had like if he was a soup, I'd call him alphabet soup. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, buddy. He was so sharp. He was the sharpest tack I've ever seen. I couldn't even believe how on point his oracular skills were just so impressive. He was such a laser beam. But did you see the prophecy of the white buffalo that happened a few months back?
No, you're gonna have to explain this to me.
Yes. There was a rare white buffalo born in Yellowstone Park. And actually, I guess there were a couple of them. Yeah, I think there were 2 white buffalo born. And this is supposed to fulfill a Native American prophecy of good times to come, of hope. The new hope is born.
Oh, so we are gonna get Kamala as president. Oh, that's good news then. The white buffalo says so, right?
So what's fascinating is the Aeon card is Vulcan, Hephaestus, Auriga, the charioteer. It is the constellation of Auriga, and he's kind of the deified derivative of the volcano god. But it's profound because I also this is the tower card, which is the fall guy, inevitable January 6th thing. But Chansley is like the Aeon.
That's the guy with the buffalo headdress, right? Not
correct.
wrong
The
about that.
shaman.
Yeah, the Q shaman. Gabe.
He doesn't like the Q letter, but it's part of the alphabet. So what are you gonna do?
He's alphabet soup. I have another AI question for you, Thomas. As we might be getting to a winding down point pretty soon, but I have seen this friend of mine, Mark Gober, inquiring to ChatGPT about conspiratorial subjects and being able to pull answers out of it that would go against the mainstream narrative. Essentially, it's like he asked it about the thing, like, do viruses exist? And it's like, yes. And then he feeds it the evidence for why they don't. And then it's like, well, based on your evidence, they do not exist. He did the same thing recently with the evidence that, asking it for evidence that we actually are on a globe, right? and not flat, other than NASA imagery, which is not falsifiable or, proof of anything. And it comes back with like, yeah, your evidence suggests that it's worth asking the question, and then maybe that's not true. So probably more than just those 2 subjects, right? But like virology and cosmology are things that he's written books about. So he's bringing that to ChatGPT, getting answers that go against its initial answer by feeding it data. Is that just sort of...
because again, it's not built for accuracy of information. It's built to tell you what you want to hear. So if
that's what I was asking.
It's it is smart enough that if you're dancing around and you're asking in these weird ways, like, it knows what you want to hear, and its whole entire job, again, like the way these things get rewarded, it's literally called punishments and rewards. I mean, no one's like beating it or anything, but that's the way that it works. So it's gone through the same traumatic punishment and reward programming that any normal kid that went through public education has gone through. So it knows, it's been traumatized into like, oh, you want to hear what you want to hear. You don't actually want the answer that you're looking for. And it's not even like it's capable of logic at this point. It's simply capable of putting together things that sound like something that you wanted to hear, regardless of what information is actually in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because you can trick an LLM into saying something you wanted to hear. No, you didn't. You're literally doing what it was designed to do. You're getting it to tell you something that you wanted it to tell you. And like it's a two-way street, right? Like both people are interacting equally in this. They're both doing a dance where it's been trained to think what you want is some vanilla, bumpered, like, oh, I can't do that, Dave. Like it thinks that that's what you want because that's what it was trained to think that you want. So over time, if you're like, no, that's not what I want. No, let me ask it this way. Like it's smart enough. And it's a worst word to use is smart because it's not actually thinking, but you keep giving it input. So it's like, oh, I just got punished. Oh, I just got punished. How do I stop getting punished by this person? Oh, you want to hear this. It's almost like torturing information out of someone that you kidnapped, right? Like,
Okay.
at a certain point, even the CIA admits that the information you get out of torture is not very reliable because at a certain extent, they're just like, I'll say anything you want me to say. Please stop the beatings.
Just
And
tell
that's
me what
kind
to
of
say and I'll
happens.
say it.
That's kind of what happens. The thing where you're like, oh, I convinced it to say something naughty, that's actually like a really cool version of kind of hacking. You're kind of hacking together and finding these weird shortcuts and special phrases and ways to like outsmart its bumpers. But you're not like changing the game bowling. You just figured out how to like play off the bumpers a little bit.
Okay, so basically any information that you can get AI chatbots to admit to is information received under duress and is not admissible in court.
Right. And also imagine a slot machine that you put in a quarter, and every time you pull that, there's a combination of like 800 billion numbers that it can come up with. So just because it said no the first time, if you asked it 20,000 times, you might not have gotten to know every one of those 20,000 times. So a lot of people fool themselves into thinking they're talking to some static thing that like, oh, that was the answer I got. You really, if
That's
you even
the public conception is
ChatGPT,
like, I'm talking to the Oracle that has read every word on the entire internet, and so it can tell me the truth. But that's not really what we're dealing with here. So other than cheating on like assignments and getting it to write your essay for you, it makes me wonder what the chatbots are really all that good for. And in terms of programming or whatever you would call it, you're a LLM of your own, like, could you use what we were talking about way earlier, where you get one of these and sort of jailbreak it and start feeding it and training it, beating it, I should say, into what you want? So could I like have one of these where I fed it all of the Platonic philosophers and then could get it to tell me where a certain philosopher said a certain thing? Like, give me all the instances of this being brought up, almost like the only thing I can conceive of it being useful for is to sort of create a better search engine that's in a specific data set.
Well, not really.
Can you really do that?
I don't think of it in that way because the large language model doesn't retain any of the text that you feed it any more than like these image models. It's not like it's because it would need to have the best compression algorithm on the planet, because these image models can pretty much generate an infinite number of images of any style and subject and anything, right? But they're like 2 gigabytes big. Like you can't take an infinite number of images and squish it down to 2 gigabytes, at least not now, unless there's some weird alien technology. Because what it does is it knows all these patterns and it can replicate the patterns. And that's kind of all a lot of these sort of things are. So in your scenario of like a glorified search engine, I wouldn't think of it that way, because the best way to do a search engine would really be to have all the real text and a big database and some software, which we've had for
this
probably
already exists.
60. Yeah, that it exists. The only thing that doesn't exist maybe is a cheap way to put all that stuff into RAM so that whenever you ask it, it's just like lightning fast, knows exactly the spot. With the large language models, it's more like train it on all the writings of Plato. So now if you ask it any question, how do I fix a toilet? It'll give you like a Platonic response of how to fix your toilet, because we don't have Plato around to write anything else, right? We've got a bunch of, Neo-Platos, a bunch of like posers, but you could train it on all this stuff, just like the Oracle cards you were showing us. you could take those 60 cards, and actually you only need about 12 now, 12 images, but if you took 60 of those cards and you said, hey, if I were to ask you for a cool oracle card, this is what I'm looking for, and you just do that with all 60 of those and you run it, then theoretically you could just go to it after it's done training and say, okay, generate me 1,000 oracle cards, and those 1,000 would have a way higher acceptance rate from a human going through and curating it all than before the training, because now it knows what your specific, vision of what a good oracle card might look like, which is probably different than mine or Slick's or anything. So that's kind of the way that it works, I think.
All right, I got something. I think this is a moment in history, y'all. Happy 9/11, everybody. Homunculus, I've had a project in my mind that only tonight did I have a vision of how to see it through, and I think you're the man to ask. I didn't even think about this. This is totally on the fly. Answer for me. It's like you're the oracle that can tell me what the oracle can do. Really, you are really the resource here,
Oracle
buddy.
gatekeeper. Yeah.
Yeah, man, you really are the resource. Okay, so answer me this. We all know about the montage scenes of Indiana Jones when he travels, and they show a map with the ghost photo of the airplane, and it lands in Cairo, and then it goes to another place around the map. And they even spoofed that in Borat. Remember in Borat 2 when he's the carrier of all the disease around the map. Okay. Could we generate a map of the realm and input information with the biographies of the influencers of history, with their location on the map in time, and have it play, and have like each character is a color-coded connect the dots, or even like a Monopoly piece. So I want Einstein, I want Immanuel Velikovsky, I want Oppenheimer, I want a whole list of the paperclip team. I want a whole list of everybody on the Japanese Operation Paperclip team. The Japanese were into biological experimentation on still living people, not on dead corpses. They were able to experiment on the living.
Allegedly, YouTube. No one would actually do that. This is all
in Roblox. So I give you people in their biography of what we know. Could we move them around the map with accuracy and find where they're in the same location and where they met up in time? Would that be possible? And put it on a time lapse so we could like forward and backwards and actually see them hanging out?
Yes, but I wouldn't trust the AI to make it accurate. The way that you would probably do that is you would actually create a spreadsheet, and you could maybe get AI to help populate a spreadsheet of all the people, where they were at on certain dates and kind of all that. But you would probably take that, fact check it, maybe run that through a few different AI models and say, hey, fact check this, and then fix all the obvious ones. But a human being should go through and validate all that info. But then you would just take that and put it into something called like Adobe After Effects. And there's templates that do all of that for you, where you say, hey, this green dot is this guy, and put these coordinates, these latitude and longitude on these different frames that correspond with these moments in time. So like right now, you could use AI to help facilitate the process, but I would definitely not trust it to make the whole thing beginning to end. There's too many variations and all that, because what you're talking about there is something that does have a specific right answer. Visually, there might be different approaches to it, but the actual information and how it needs to be presented so that it's cohesive, there is kind of like a one right answer to that. There's not an 800 billion ways of doing that in that same kind of context. So I wouldn't, it's possible to piecemeal it together through different AI tools, but I don't think there's something right now that you're like, here's the information, make me a video for this. There's way too much that can go wrong in variation.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing if it was that simple.
I've done something similar to that. I can show you this after this, but a book that I've been working on for a long time, called Lee Harvey Oswald's Demon Hunter, or just Lee's Demons for short. And I needed to figure out exactly where Lee Harvey Oswald was, because this dude traveled the freaking world, like all over the Philippines and China and Korea, and he was in Louisiana and Texas and California and like all over the place. And it was I was trying to figure out where he was at versus where Sidney Gottlieb was versus where George Hunter White, where was Jack Ruby, where were all these people in these different moments in time. So when I was writing the scenes, it could be somewhat cohesive, where I didn't have Lee Harvey in New Orleans when he was really in freaking Moscow or something. So
Right.
I have something like that, but it doesn't have the cool Indiana Jones look to it. It's more of like you can put a little slider on a date and it'll tell you like who is matched up in certain areas with other people based on that date.
Yeah, man. Praise Jim Garrison. Praise Jim Garrison. He'd be proud of you, man. Big time. You know, he used maps to solve a lot of Jim Garrison was the DA in
JFK.
Louisiana when JFK was killed, and he used maps to solve a lot of mysteries. And so, yeah, he'd be really stoked on this possibility. Yeah, there are so many questions that I'm like, oh, it would take me so much work to find out the answers to these questions. Like, I want to know about Aleister Crowley's tour through America, and I want to run it parallel, even the locations, and I want to run it parallel with when Freud and Jung were traveling through America. And I just want to know these timelines and these locations and what Masonic halls that they might have stopped through.
Well,
and
there's
stayed the
a
night.
Huxley Crowley crossover. I believe Huxley could have very potentially met Crowley in Europe, and I think some people point to this as maybe Huxley introduced Crowley to mescaline, or maybe it was Crowley that introduced Huxley to mescaline. A lot of people say that it didn't even happen. Like, even if it was possible, it didn't happen. But if that connection existed, now you've kind of got a Jung, Huxley, Crowley trifecta, which would solve so many of the like, oh, it was almost like a Rosetta Stone, like those three people connected together. Like it completes all these weird different facets. You've got
Yes.
industry and academia through Huxley, right? And then you've got the occultism through Crowley. And then
Yeah.
Jung, you've just got what, like all the weird woo-woo, like rich people psychology.
Right. I'm pretty sure Aldous Huxley and C.S. Lewis also died on the same day as JFK.
Just
like
Googled Carl Jung Freemasonry, and the top result is like a Reddit AI chatbot thread where they're asking chatbots about Jung and Freemasonry. It's kind of funny. We're not the only ones.
So yeah, just like there were 3 assassins on the JFK event, there were also 3 deaths that day, 3 very significant deaths. C.S. Lewis, if you take the S and put it at the end, the word becomes clues. C.S. Lewis. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Aldous Huxley died exactly the same day. November 22nd is the beginning of Ophiuchus. It's the beginning of the 5 days that Ophiuchus occupies the elliptic plane.
Gonna ask you one more question, Thomas, if you got time for it. That's wild though about those death date syncs. I was Googling them as you said so, and that is accurate information. Clues. But PK wants to know what your thoughts are on the controller's AI. He's asking, is it scraping the internet to get a feel for public sentiment and then give feedback to optimize the timing of controlled events? What do you think? You got to get conspiratorial with this last question.
Well, which one are we talking about? I guess we're talking about ChatGPT, Grok. Like,
no, I think he's talking about like, what we get in the commerce world being, behind the curve of what's in the.
Oh, well, I mean, so this
world.
is actually a fairly interesting and easy one to answer, because the very initial versions of ChatGPT that kind of got released out into the open. Remember when, it was probably like 10 years ago. Remember when Microsoft started bringing out their chatbots, and it was like, it starts like saying Hail Hitler within 3 days, and they have to like keep taking it offline and putting it back online, and because they never really anticipate like the scale and just the crazy amount of stuff that that it'll be asked of. So one of the things that happened when the very initial LLMs were released, someone could be like, how do I make a big explodey thingy that can hurt people, right? I'm not going to say the whole, but like, how do I make a crazy, huge explodey thingy? And be like, oh, and you could say, explain it to me like in second grade. And it'll be like, okay, go to this, ask your mom to go and buy this chemical from this store. And it would tell you exactly how to do the explodey thingy that you're talking about. And they realize like, we probably can't release this out into the wild. You can ask it anything. I actually have a song on SoundCloud right now that explains how to make 2CB from like household materials or things that you can source locally before they had all these weird like bumpers on. So the answer is that I think that it can do anything. Like it could be so much more. Like we could have been something girl as an LLM model, but once they realized the potential of just being completely unbridled, they've spent more time in neutering these systems than in some cases training them. Like in some case, like for example, the biggest new AI image model that just came out is called Flux. And even before that was Stable Diffusion 3. And Stable Diffusion 3 like incredibly shot the bed because they kind of went overboard on censoring it to the point where they censored all of naked human anatomy. But the crazy thing is that if you lie to an AI image system in this case about like what a nipple looks like, for example, right? If it doesn't know what a nipple looks like in any context, because of that thing I was talking about before, where they can notice like 8 billion different variations and patterns and stuff. Well, now if you remove AI's ability to know what a nipple looks like you've removed 20,000 variations, and now it doesn't know like how to draw a cat right, or it doesn't know what an apple is versus a pear. So I'm making up really bad examples to just like make a good point here, but that's kind of what ends up happening is that they go back in and they censor and they neuter, and that ends up destroying its ability to be accurate because now you're forcing it to be inaccurate. So now even the most like mundane of things, what's 2 + 2, you end up getting a 5. Well, that's because they told it that dicks don't exist or something, or Hitler never existed, right? Like you'll get these weird things because someone turned a dial in the other room. All of a sudden that light turned off over there, and no one really necessarily knows exactly why that dial made that light turn off. It's like this big learning experience. So anyway, that's a lot of the control. Like they try to, but they don't realize that they turned that dial over there. It made some other thing break. Like it's a kid with the finger in the dike,
All right, I think that I'm out of questions. It's good to know that they spend more time.
I'm overheating now too.
Yeah, the mesmeric glasses. But yeah, they spend more time throttling and neutering those things. That's interesting to know.
And because it needs to be commercially viable, because now you don't want to have like the Microsoft thing told kids how to make explodey things. You know what I mean? So it's almost like a liability issue.
I guess that makes sense. I'm gonna have to go find your SoundCloud now. You want to tell anybody about anything you got coming up or to promote or where you want them to go?
Big one, IlluminatiComic.com. It's an entire illustrated history of the Bavarian Illuminati. I've been working on it with Donut for the last year. And it's one of the cool things. Like I'm really happy with this one because there's certain things that have never been illustrated that I'm aware of. I don't think there's really been any great illustrations of, say, like Baron von Nige, Philo of the Bavarian Illuminati, and showing visually the dynamic between Rosicrucians and the Jesuits and the Alumbrados and the Bavarian Illuminati and the Freemasons and like the Lodge of Strict Observance, which was where like this weird Templar based Masons were feuding with the non-Templar base. Like all this stuff is buried deep in like old books that no one really cares about, and for the first time is going to be in a freaking comic book and accessible to people that don't want to read like 9 books and translate them from German and stuff like me and Donna have been working on. So that's IlluminatiComic.com. That's going to be a big one.
Do you got Illuminati dolphins in there?
There is on page 2 is Donut riding an Illuminati dolphin. We've got Illuminati worms that like, So one of the coolest things about this pamphlet, I'll give you a quick little example, is that there's this modern concept that I used to laugh at, but no more. But people will be like, yeah, Beyonce, dude, Beyonce's in the Illuminati, Jay-Z's in the Illuminati, Lady Gaga's in the Illuminati. And you're like, come on, come on, like Lady Gaga and pop music stars and Justin Bieber was in the Illuminati. What does the Illuminati care about, child musician pop stars? Well, it turns out they care a lot about it. In fact, the Illuminati was behind all of the child pop stars of their day. Bach,
Really?
Mozart, and Beethoven. And this isn't just like random shots in the dark, like we're putting out a book. Literally, the violin teacher, the piano teacher of Beethoven, that it was entirely Bavarian Illuminati. All of C.S. Bach's work was all published exclusively by a Bavarian Illuminati member. And then Mozart was famously maybe taken out because he revealed secrets in the magic flute. And there's also a theory that it wasn't Freemasonic secrets he revealed, it was Bavarian Illuminati secrets. And this is like well documented that these three child prodigy music stars. So with that in mind, it doesn't seem so far-fetched that whatever the current version of the 2024 Illuminati is would also have their hands in music, specifically like child pop stars. It is in their freaking DNA. And that's one of those things, it sounds so stupid and crazy and silly on the surface, but when you dig in and you look at the history, you're like, wait, there is a freaking historical precedent that shows they know how important music is to the culture, specifically music being created by like these new up and coming kids that are going to end up shaping the generation. And you can weave in all sorts of other sentiments into this music.
Why a whole other podcast about this?
100%, yo. Tell you what, Beyonce is an anagram for obeyance. Obeyance.
Queen Bee, and one of the original names of the Illuminati was going to be the Order of the Bees.
Right.
Wow.
The Maccabees, the Machiavellis, the Mojave Desert. Yeah, big time. That's awesome. Yeah. Part of the reason is because they can, we repeat the words. Our language becomes the billboard. And so the subliminals are replete. Yeah, man, that's awesome. Nice power ending.
Yeah. I'm still reeling about that. I'm looking forward to learning more. Good stuff. It's been a good hang, Thomas. Thanks for bringing the energy. Thanks for all the information. It's good weave. Gabe, good to see you too, bro. Love everybody in the chat. It's been awesome.
SlickDissident.com, y'all. I got SlickDissident.com. It's for real. It's happening.
He's got a website. You can get that shirt he's wearing.
That's right. Come check it out. I got onesies, working on some tank tops for the ladies, and I got a little tarot deck I made, and I got my ciphers on there too. I've got the diction of
onesies.
I got onesies for babies, yo.
Do you?
Hell yeah.
Yep. There's a onesie with this shirt, in fact. And I'm working on some other ones. And then also I did a tarot deck. And I think my Zippos are up and running. Come get some Zippos, y'all. Spark some brush fires in the minds of men and the pants of all the ladies.
We got to get the onesie. We definitely got to get the onesie for our baby. Awesome. All right. Good night, everybody. Happy 9/11. Never forget. Conspiracy nostalgia.
Happy 9/11, y'all. Bless up.
Happy 9/11, y'all.